Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Ryden. It's funny how a simple decision or even a mistake can change someone's life. A guy turns right instead of turning left, and the next thing you know, he's in the spy business. Well, it sounds like a movie, and who knows, it may be one eventually. As unlikely as a wrong turn turning your life around may seem, that's what happened to Marty Kaiser. He's our guest today, and he's the author of Help Yourself, a story of FBI corruption. Welcome, Marty. Glad you could be with us today.
Welcome my home, Paul.
Now, you talked about FBI corruption, but first of all, I want to know about that that turn, that wrong turn you took to change your life. What was that all about?
But when I started my company, I did industrial service. I did all the steel mills, plastic companies, copper refineries, and breweries. One day I was at an American brewery, and when I left, I turned left instead of turning right. Got lost in downtown Baltimore. And the next thing I know, I was in front of a sign that said U.S. Army Intelligence, Fort Oliver, Maryland. So I went in there, found a door, knocked on it, said, I'm a fix-it guy. And the next thing you know, I'm in the spy business.
Well, wait a minute. Why did you walk in there? It said,
It was just another door.
you are a curious guy.
Yeah, I just drove around the inside of Fort Wallenberg and finally found a door that said supply. And that was the door I knocked on.
So
And
you were looking for a sale?
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
to sell my services, repair services.
okay.
So, I figured every place has something that's broken. So
Yeah, that's true, as well we
they
know.
have to have two. So
Well,
they opened the door and there they were.
how did that end up being in the spy business?
Colonel Domes answered the door, and I said, "I am Marty Kaiser. I'm a guy that can kind of fix things." And he says, "Really?" He took me to the back of the shop, and there were racks and racks of equipment. He said, "These are all broken. You think you can fix them?" So I started with the lie detectors and various other products, fixed them all for him. He was very happy. Spent quite a while repairing stuff, and I noticed that most of what they're using for the intelligence business was commercially available equipment. So I asked him, "How about I start manufacturing exactly what you need for you?" He said, "Sounds great." So I settled down and designed an amplifier, took it to him. He said, "This is exactly what we want. We'll give one to each student." And the next thing I knew I was in the manufacturing pie business, and it went on from there.
Yeah. Where did it go from there?
Well, I started just a rash of products came out. My first one was the audio amplifier, the 1059 audio amplifier. And from there to a bug detector, to a thing called a telephone analyzer. And then I started teaching at their school and ran into Larry Linville from the Metropolitan Bomb Squad. And we talked about my 1059 and how it could be used for bomb detection work. So I ran back to the shop and redesigned the 1059 and came out with a stethoscope called the 2049. And it had, differing from the 1059, an automatic gain control. Because in bomb searches, you're constantly moving the probe from point A to point B, and that would normally make a heck of a lot of noise if you didn't have an automatic gain control. So I made that with him, and next thing you know, I'm in the bomb business. And I'm supplying bomb squads worldwide.
Good. Well, you've always been interested in gadgets since you were a little kid. And the first part of your book, even though the title is a story of FBI corruption, before you get to all of that, you talk about all the gadgets you dealt with when you were a kid, and you even have diagrams in there. What's that all about?
Well, let's see if I can show a picture.
Sure.
Let's see. Uh,
Looks like you.
Here's a good picture. That's me with all the equipment I started building when I was 12 years old.
No kidding.
Yeah, my first transmitter was a homemade transmitter, and then I went on to a commercially available transmitter, and then started designing the big things, and eventually got up to a 1,000-watt transmitter.
Hmm.
So that all started when I was 12. The transmitter kept getting higher and higher and higher, and more powerful and more powerful.
Well,
So,
you kind of reminded me of like Chester Gould, who wrote the Dick Tracy comics. The wrist radio and all that, the modern gadgets that we thought, oh, that's never going to happen. And sure enough, you can talk on your phone now that way. But you were doing that. You had a speech right after high school in which you were talking about, let's see, it was satellites and space stations, much of which has come to pass years later. Have you always been that kind of futuristic thinker?
not a futuristic, realistic guy. Uh, I knew those things were going to happen because I could visualize how I was making. I have to tell this side story. When I was in Wyoming Cemetery, I was in 11th grade speech class, and giving my speech, and what I said basically is, I know absolutely everything I want to know right now. And that's really what it worked out to be. Everything I knew. That's learned. I got an F, by the way. But it just knowledge comes out of nowhere. I never had a class in electronics in my life, and it's a marvel. It's a real marvel.
Yeah. Well, so is your career. Because the thrust of this book isn't just a kid's preoccupation with gizmos and machines, it's a story of betrayal. And it started with you happening to see some dubious paperwork on an FBI agent's desk. Walk us through that. What are you talking about there?
Um, I used to sell stuff to the FBI, but they asked me to sell through a phony front that they had called U.S. Recording Company. And I did. But what I would do in case of bugging equipment, I would take the equipment straight to the FBI and build a phony front. And the reason I did that was because there was the omnibus crime bill that said you can only deal with law enforcement agencies when it comes to surveillance equipment. So a couple of days later, I went into Bill Harwood's office, and there was my invoice sitting on the desk with the price struck out, and it was now 150% higher. I thought, what the heck? What's this? So when the House Select Committee on Intelligence invited me to talk before them, I explained how that came about, and they sent investigators over to my shop, and because they were interested primarily in the omnibus crime bill, and I pulled up out a drawer, and I said, "There's all my customers of bugging equipment," and right in the midst of that file was U.S. Reporting Company, and they asked, "Who's this?" And I told them it was the FBI, and they raised their eyebrows, and next thing you know, I'm before Congress explaining the whole story. And that was the day my life ended, basically, in 1975. But a life that I used to end.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, I started my company in 65, and by 1975, I probably had thousands of intelligence agency customers all throughout the world. And when I testified about the FBI the very next day, I had none. They all suddenly became acquaintances. Phone calls stopped. They wouldn't answer my phone calls. I was basically out of business in 1975 with the intelligence community. But fortunately, people were blowing each other up on a regular basis, and the bomb business, as they call it, carried me through this for the remaining years.
So
So
you,
it's really sad to have something like that happen to you, where all of a sudden it's like all of your friends just died and they don't want to talk to you anymore.
well, now you're 90 years old now, although nobody's going to believe that because you don't look like you're 90. But so this all ended then when you were 40 years old.
That's
What were
right.
what did you do after that?
On the bomb business. There were the bombings were being increased because of the Vietnam War, both related to the FBI war, and other people decided they like to make bombs, truly. And once the word got out on how easy it was, I've seen more dead people than I'd ever cared to see. Yeah, when I looked over a bombing and I took, what could I have done to stop this from happening? And that's where a new product came into my head. And I rushed back to my shop, design it, build it, and offer it to the bomb technicians. But it was all those bombings that created all the products that I manufactured.
And what are those products exactly?
Oh boy, all kinds of stethoscopes, out of contact stethoscope, which eventually became military standard. standard throughout the entire military community. It's sort of an interesting side comment. When the bomb technicians were out doing their work, they didn't say, "Hand me my stethoscope." They said, "Hand me my Marty Kaiser." So, so after the Marine barracks, that was a standard contact stethoscope. But after the Marine barracks bombing, that was a gas enhanced bomb, where they used large tanks of propane coupled with explosives and things like that. When it went off, it lifted a 3-story building full of cars through 230 Marines, 2 feet off the ground, killed all the Marines instantaneously.
That was 1983, right?
Uh, so I dashed back and developed a ultrasonic stethoscope. It was a combined contact stethoscope, and one with an ultrasonic probe that could hear escaping gases. And you wonder who would design another one of those things.
Yeah.
Well, oddly enough, in the Columbine High School massacre, those kids built 2 gas-enhanced bombs. Fortunately, neither one went off. Because if either one had, Columbine wouldn't be there right now.
Huh.
That's how powerful those things are. But I haven't heard of a gas-enhanced bomb since.
Mhm. What, who is this book written for? I know you talked first of all about, your childhood and your interest in gadgets and that kind of thing. Then you move into the FBI corruption and the scandal and how your business went south. But who is the book written for? Who's your audience?
Concerned Americans, primarily. A lot of people don't get a flying gambit that FBI is covering, but there are lots of two. That's what we're written for.
And
It's really a shame to see 2 FBI agents turn the criminal justice system upside down and use it personally for financial reasons.
so what do you hope readers get from this book, Marty?
That law enforcement is a very serious business. When it's allowed to get out of hand, it will get out of hand. So people have to pay more attention to what's going on within the law enforcement community. That doesn't mean boycotting police. It doesn't mean chasing police around with guns. It's just they got to really sit down and think about it. And I honestly don't know how you communicate to the politician, because I tried to get this message through to congressmen, presidents, senators, and got absolutely nowhere. They weren't the least bit interested in what happened. So that's kind of sad. Anyway,
Well, the book is called Help Yourself, A Story of FBI Corruption, and it's available on Amazon as well, I'm sure other places. Marty, thanks so much for joining us today. You have a great day.
I shall. Thank you.
Oh, you bet. And thank you, folks, for spending a few minutes with us on the Global Book Network. I'm Paul Ryden. We'll see you next time.